Right. Seems like it's time. Okay, welcome everyone to the Paketo weekly working group meeting. I'm really glad to see you all here. Let me get started by sharing my screen. And again, if some of you don't have the notes and agenda handy, it's there in the chat. Feel free to add yourself to the attendees list, including your affiliation. All right. Who like to take notes for this session?
I can take notes.
Thank you, Sophie. There you go. Seems like no new faces today. All right, so let's start by reviewing outstanding RFC. So we'll start by the health check. The RFC for a health checker Buildpack. Let me see if there's any recent update. Not much. And yeah, I didn't see Daniel here. So I was wondering if there's some comments around this RFC from the team. No?
Sorry, did you say Tim? I can't see the share. I'm not sure why, but
Let me see. Okay, let me
I think it's my end. Don't worry, I'll try and figure it out.
no problem. What about there? Can you see it?
Yep, all good now. Thanks.
Cool. Cool. Okay, so it seems like no comments for the health checker Buildpack. So we will go next one. The RFC to extend .NET SDK.
I need to reach out to Emily about this. That's like the only thing that I think we're really waiting for to resolve is for her to go back through and see that I've resolved her questions around this. And then, yeah, that's it.
Cool. Got it. Thank you, Forrest. All right. Next up, the support for Yarn Berry.
Yeah, I don't think there's been much movement here. Still needs approval from Ryan once he gets back. So
Okay. Got it. Makes sense. Yeah, that's probably 1 or 2 weeks from now. Okay. Cool. Next up, proposes to add additional issue templates. Okay, this one's great. Yeah, it has an approval. Well, I don't see here Frankie nor Daniel, but this one comes from one issue. Yeah, one issue I created. It has to do that right now when users, this is true for most of the repos, not for all of them, but for most of the Buildpack repos, if a user creates an issue, the template is mainly for a bug report. And it asks a lot of questions for a bug report, but nothing if the user wants to file a feature request or report a security vulnerability, well, we don't have a template for that. So it seems like this proposal aims to have that kind of template, additional templates. So feel free to check it out, to provide your comments. I see that one of the content maintainers, Frankie, already approved. But yeah, feel free to provide comments if you need. Is there any observation, any comment around this RFC? Okay. And finally, the Jammy Builders RFC. There was some recent activity. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it seems like there's the RFC itself. It's pretty new. Um, and unfortunately, I don't see Frankie here. But yeah, it's regarding Jammy Jellyfish. I don't know if anyone else from the team would like to comment on this proposal.
I think this is a pretty basic RFC explaining how we will ship builders to accommodate for the new set of gin jellyfish stacks that are coming out. So yeah, give it a read if you have any questions or want to add anything. I guess let Frankie know.
Got it. Thank you, Sophie. Okay. Cool. Anything else for RFC? Seems like it. Okay. Right now for CMV updates, Rob recently shared a report that the CMV community shared a user survey for the last year. I find it really interesting. There's a lot of insight there. I suggest that in case you haven't done so, check it out, read it, and probably we will start a discussion about this because I see that there are some lessons we can apply from there, from this report. It's interesting for me to find that the biggest frustration is that buildpacks are not used widely enough in this industry, an adoption issue. Yeah, there's a ton of information here, so we suggest that you give it a read, and probably at the next meeting we will discuss it even better, unless you all want to comment something around the survey right now. No. Okay, it's a pretty interesting read. Okay, next one in terms of project update, I wanted to use some of the time, or probably the remaining time of this session, to share with you all the results of an assessment that I've been running with the Paketo project, and that explain most of the issues that I've been creating so far. So yeah, I don't like PowerPoint either, but this is what I have handy to show you briefly the results. First, that we need to say that this is one of the things we do in the community engagement team for projects that are initiated or maintained by VMware, or that has at least one VMware maintainer. We used to run assessments against a set of guidelines or best practices for the health of an open source community. So this is not this doesn't have any commercial implication. It's just having metrics for the engagement of the community and the health and growth of this community. Because we all, if you ask a open source maintainer or a bunch of open source maintainers, they all want to grow the community. But the first step is to measure appropriately the kind of metrics that are relevant, and also to establish a plan to increase engagement and help users be successful with the project. So these guidelines are public. I will share with you the link in a bit. It's under the VMware Tanzu repo. You will find there the community engagement repo, and all this work is public, is there. We have 6 domains, measuring project maturity, viability, the growth itself of the community, the diversity of the community, um, how the maintainers are being able to cope up with the load of issues, PRs, and all of that, and in general, user engagement. So these are the 6 domains. I won't go any deeper. I'm just providing a summary because most of this work have to be done asynchronously, but I'm here to share with you all a summary of the findings. So what's working well when compared with this baseline, what's working well in the project, the content of the documentation itself. I mean, this project has several getting started guides. It has a good reference, um, and most of the documentation content is deep enough to help users. But there are some opportunities to improve there that I will share with you in a bit. Also, the fact that this team works mostly in the open, it's pretty good. This is a challenge not only at VMware but at many other companies maintaining open source projects. Sometimes it's really hard to break a culture of working, in the closed source and making decisions, behind the walls and not communicating enough. But this team works differently, and they usually start in the open. And yeah, kudos for that. This is great. It sometimes is the hardest part of helping a community grow. And finally, adoption. Um, from what we can see, there's a good number of organizations using Paketo Buildpacks out there. Who are them and what they are doing with the project? We are not sure. That's part of the action plan, but we have seen many interactions in Slack channels, in events, etc. That leads us to conclude that there are many organizations actually using Paketo Buildpacks. So that's fine. What needs to be working on a little bit better is, for example, the release note completeness. We already started a discussion on this. There's an issue for that. Um, I will show you by the end of the session how we are continuing the conversation here, but it's trying to find a balance between providing more human readable information in release notes, but avoiding having to write release notes, from the scratch by hand for every release, for every buildback. That's one of the findings. Also, a way to provide recognition for contributors beyond just the shoutouts in the release notes. A consistent way to publicly recognize the many contributions this project receives, different kind of contributions, not only code. And also to work more on the non-code contributions front. What is non-code? Well, mostly content in terms of blog posts, presentations at events, screencasts, etc. Everything that helps with the biggest frustration of this community, that the project is not widely used out there. Probably is because most of the times users like myself have confusions at the beginning. So all the efforts on spreading the word about the project are key for the health of this community. So far, any question? Is this clear enough? Yeah. Otherwise, let me know. Okay. Yeah. So there are some things here in terms of project maturity. There are some guidelines that again are public, but the summary is that there are some improvements to the README that I already put in a story in an issue. For example, a reference to the Code of Conduct by the Cloud Foundry Foundation. And one that is important, at least for a new user like myself, is that if I go to the README the global README of the Paketo organization or the README of any build pack, I don't find a link or a reference to the getting started guide. And for the adoption of a project, it's really important to find a smooth way so users are exploring the project, just evaluating the project. They find it easy to just get started. You already have the content there. You already have or the project already have a pretty good getting started guide, much better than most other projects, but it's not referenced here, right? So there's already a story for that. We'll keep working on this, but it's part of the findings. Usually projects here are, are launched and there's a blog post that goes with the announcement. We only found the blog post at the Medium Paketo Buildpacks account or space. I don't know how it's called on Medium. So we will explore how to have this content hosted at the Paketo blog itself. You know, the initial blog post that explain what is the project and what does it do and how it helps. So it's really useful. Yeah, again, the issue template, you saw that it's already in the works. The governance doc, if we read right now the governance doc, it will let one to think that to be able to contribute anything to the project, you need to pass through an election process. So this is, I think this is already fixed. If you see right now, I mean, because I don't have enough time here, but if you go to let me share my screen here, the governance doc real quick. You will see that there's already a definition of roles. Oh no, it's not merged there, but it's in the work. There's a PR in the works to clarify that anyone can participate in the project. Because right now, if you see there, it says that the contributor has to make regular contributions. It has to be nominated or self-nominated and must be elected. So we need to give a space for casual contributions, and that's the message of this fund. All right, a style guide. We need to document the style guide we are using for docs that will help external contributors to help with documentation eventually. We need to work on a public list of adopter organizations. This is something that I will be leading and probably finding help from the PM team. And most of the talks, events, content out there dates to the launch to 2 years ago or 1 year ago. So we need to work on a content plan, and I will share with you in a bit. Okay, in terms of contribution to open source, related open source projects, in summary, according to the CNV public stats, the majority of contributions to the CNV project comes from Pivotal or VMware accounts, GitHub accounts. The top contributions to the project comes from Emily and some other VMware and Pivotal folks. Even this account here that it says Avelin Juan Bustamante, he's a VMware employee. Probably he's using his previous GitHub account. But most of the recent contributions to the CNV project comes from VMware employees. So that's good. That's positive in terms of upstream contributions. Cool. The OpenSSF best practices. The Open Source Security Foundation now maintains a baseline of best practices that cover most of the stuff in terms of security, quality, for infrastructure. Let me share with you. So we have here a profile already created for Paketo Buildpacks. You will see here that there are 6 domains of best practices for several things. In summary, this is what the Linux Foundation thinks, and in this case, the Open Source Security Foundation thinks it's the baseline of what an open source project should have. And we are to complete most of this information. I'm sure that most of these features are already in place for the project. We just need to complete it, and now we'll have a session with Daniel to go over all of this and complete information so we can have hopefully the passing level criteria. This is the goal so far. Silver and gold criteria requires even more stuff, but right now it's only to achieve the passing level. Right, and for that we need to reach 100%. We don't need to do everything here, but we need to document if we are not doing, I don't know, if you are not using CI/CD, for example, why we are not doing it, right? So this is good for adoption. It helps user exploring out there the project to have the confidence to deploy it in their use cases. All right, regular release cadence. This is one of the key metrics for most open source projects here, but we decided that probably doesn't apply for Paketo because we have a bunch of different Buildpack communities here, and that we just cannot enforce a regular release cadence for the project. Probably it doesn't apply. And that's true for other, let's say, umbrella projects here, like Curvel. We just cannot enforce regular release cadence. Roadmap quality, it's improving by a lot. Not only because it's built in the public and communicated, but the fact that we will be following it up during regular meetings publicly. That's certainly something that makes the difference. Because one thing is to build a roadmap and put it in the repo. Another thing is to make sure that we are following it through the years. So yeah, that's good. Documentation, in summary, documentation is fine, but we didn't want to arrive to conclusions there just because of probably a user like myself. I'm not an experienced developer. There are some things that probably I don't fully understand. So for this, we would like to propose and explore, and probably with the help of the PM team, formal user research exercise. What is that? We will find a set of users, a subset of the user community that would like to contribute feedback, and with clear goals, we will focus on a specific section of the documentation or the site itself, and we will collect specific and actionable feedback. Because one thing is to ask a user, hey, what do you think about docs? Yeah, I like them, or not, whatever. But a totally different thing, and that's been my experience so far with another project. It's a totally different thing to run a formal exercise with a methodology that will produce actionable feedback, relevant feedback that we can use to improve docs or create more enablement content, etc. That could help, because right now you have a lot of content in the docs, but probably it could be reordered, or some things could be better explained, etc. So we consider that a formal user research exercise will do a lot of benefit. There's a team of, in this case at VMware, there's a team of product designers that could help. So we are happy to facilitate that interaction to run the experiment. So far, any question, any observations? No. Okay. Yeah, growth of community, again, role definitions, the casual contributors role, that's in the works. you have a well-defined path to maintainership right there in the governance doc for a user. Besides the casual contributions, it's pretty clear what is needed to go from from everyone to core contributor to maintainer, and what are the responsibilities. So that's good. And there is a slightly positive trend in terms of continually onboarding new contributors. This is the graph from the last 6 months in terms of contributions. All these metrics are public, are there at the Insights Linux Foundation instance. I just downloaded them. So we see a slightly growing trend, and one of the key metrics for success here will be to keep that pace, or even to increase the pace of contributor growth, and not only growth by the diversity of contributions in terms of not only, I don't know, VMware employees or etc., but to recruit or to have contributions from more organizations, and not only in terms of code. This is only code contributions, right? But this is good. Okay, yeah, well, the distribution of work has to do with, again, of all the things that need to be done to maintain the project. Mostly right now it's maintainer driven. There are not much stuff that the community is right now. We are ready to delegate, for example, docs. In the future, we could have a documentation working group with folks from the community helping with docs. But for that, we need first to document the style guide and some other stuff. So right now, it's mostly maintainer driven, but the plan is to change that in the future to distribute more the load of maintaining and growing the project. Decision distribution. Well, the thing with open source is that most of the decisions are still central. I mean, think on Linux itself. The only person with merge permissions is Linus Torvalds, so it's pretty centralized. So this is not a problem for an open source project. The only problem is not communicating decisions widely enough. Right now it's great because, yeah, most of the decisions are made here and by the steering committee, but right now they are well communicated, they are well tracked on issues on PRs, so no immediate issues there. Communication channels. Yeah, we have Slack. We have our own Slack workspace. That's interesting. Twitter account. Right now, for example, I have, let's say, permissions to post on the Twitter account, but I cannot see mentions. I cannot see when someone mentions Paketo. I will explore how to improve this with the CFF marketing folks. And also you use heavily discussions, which is great. The newsletter. We have the mailing list, but I haven't started to build a newsletter because I would like to build it collectively. You know, sometimes it's hard to find. I mean, there are many things that are new, but I need to go through several Slack channels, places, etc. So probably having, I don't know if an issue for every edition of the newsletter could help with for anyone that could contribute there. Hey, this is new. Just make sure that's in the newsletter. That could help. I will create a story for this, and also to find agreement on or consensus on what will be the cadence. Once every 2 weeks, once every month, etc. What will make sense for the team. But yeah, a newsletter is definitely helpful. Cool. Yeah, diversity of the community. Well, we right now for the past 6 months, in average, we have 6 active contributors a week. That it's mostly the size of the maintainers team with some folks from the from the external to the core team making contributions. The organization, it's mostly VMware right now. And in terms of non-code contributions, the maintainers blog is pretty active, which is great. Kudos for that. There are other blog posts out there created by users out there. But again, yeah, it ties back to the core finding that most of this content is not very recent, and we need to constantly and intentionally work on content. There's a plan for that we'll share with you all. So this is the picture of contributing organizations. It's mainly VMware, and the second plate, it's our friends from IBM. Unknown is most likely folks with GitHub accounts tied to personal email. So that's unknown. And we have our friends from Engineer Better, Bloomberg, SAP, and some others in Red Hat is there. So, but yeah, right now, in terms of PRs, is mostly VMware. Yeah, non-code contributions. This is the inaugural blog post, the first blog post that described what is a project, and it's a really good one. We'll try to see what we can do with this content to make it more visible, and because Medium has a paywall. But yeah, most of this content dates to 2020. And something similar for non-code contributions, with the exception of some presentation for last year Cloud Foundry Summit. In terms of attentiveness of maintainers, yeah, well, recognition of contributors. We need to make sure that, I mean, contributing to open source, it has a lot to do with intrinsic motivation. Users out there find meaning, find that there is meaningful for them to contribute to this project, and probably it helps with professional recognition. But certainly, there's also the need for external or extrinsic recognition. So the goal is to have a consistent initiative that could help recognizing every contribution. So this is what I call the Contributor of the Month initiative. I will share real quick here the story for this, because I've been running a similar initiative in the past, and it's pretty good, because most of the times people contributing to a project, to an open source project, are not expecting anything in return. So the fact that they are recognized and we give them a small token appreciation, for example, a swag bundle delivered to their house, that helps a lot with motivating them to keep doing it, and also motivating others to contribute to the project. So the plan is to recognize 3 types of contribution: code, the most common one; content, anyone who writes a blog post or create a presentation or a podcast, whatever, with Paketo Buildpacks; and a community advocate, someone who joins the meetings, someone who comments on RFCs or issues, or simply is there to ask questions or answer questions from the community. It's equally helpful for the project. So the plan is to recognize this contribution publicly. For the code contributions, there's already a script that will help me scrap to the 100 and etc. repos and find the recent contributions. I just need to tweak it to fit all the Paketo repos, and plans to write a blog post with all the details and a clear and transparent election process. And I'm already working with a swag provider to have all these swag bundles for contributors. And also to the first meeting of the month, we will add it to the agenda to provide also a shout out, a public shout out for top contributions from last month. So that's part of the action plan here to help with recognition of contributors. Yeah, you run retrospectives. It's not feasible to run retrospectives for all the Buildpack releases. So yeah, they're fine. My experience with our projects here is that sometimes it's also useful to include in the retro content not only specific release, but in general how the project is doing. You know, the how can we improve the way we are working. So this is also useful. Again, release note completeness. This is already in the works. There's a story for that. And transparency, it's never done. You know, transparency in open source is never done. It's always improving, but you do a really good job on this. Oh yeah, attentiveness of maintainers. This is for the overall Paketo Buildpacks repos. You know, the majority of the times the PRs remain open for almost 15 days. That is not good, it's not bad, it's just what it is, because some PRs need a lot of discussion, need approvals, etc. Life happens. So that's just mere information. This is not tied to any metric. This is just information that I wanted to bring here. All right, and finally, the user community engagement, user training material. I mean, again, this all ties back to the formal user research exercise, because my impression, this is only my impression, is probably that a step-by-step approach could be useful. I mean, how to get started, how to use this build pack for a specific language. You already have this in the Getting Started guide, but probably we need to connect it better, and also try to have content for those who learn by doing. I wanted to propose build a Katakora tutorial, but Katakora is being shut down. So probably another alternative to have a sandbox environment so folks can learn and try it out there would be useful. And yeah, well, the process for bug reports, feature request, mainly needs the issue template that it's already in the works. And meetings, I created an issue for this, a story for this, because right now we have this session, the working group meeting, and I understand that the term comes from the Cloud Founder Foundation working groups. But it's, from what I can see, it's mostly focused on contributions, contributors, people willing to discuss RFCs, I mean, contributors. But we don't have a meeting or a synchronous space for users, for folks just adopting build packs, not interested on building a new stack or a new build pack, just trying to use it instead of Docker files, etc. So in the story, I'm proposing to have a monthly user meetup where we could have content specifically geared for adopting users and for them to bring questions. And that's one of the proposals. I mean, I'm not a fan of a bunch of meetings, but certainly a synchronous space, I don't know, once per month for users could be helpful. You know, previous art for this, I used to be also part-time community manager for the Backstage project, and they have yeah, contributor meetup and user meetup. It's totally different content, and yeah, it's pretty useful for, especially for users, find a space where to ask questions directly to the team. So I plan to put all of this into a blog post where you can track the issues, where you can track what we plan to do with the findings. And in the issues, you can comment and all that. So far, any question, comment, observation?
I was just curious about the meetings you mentioned just now. I know it was just a proposal, but I wondered if there is already evidence of folks who would probably show up to that kind of meeting, or whether that's something we just find out as we go along, like if we were to do it.
Yeah. Well, again, it's not a formal research that led me to think this. I just observe what's happening in the, for example, in the Slack channels. Most of the
Gotcha.
times is user questions. And yeah, I'm fan of asynchronous communication more than synchronous. But having a yeah recurring space, probably not so frequent, but a recurring space where they can bring questions, or we can gather the most, the frequently asked questions, and hey, here's how to do this specific task, right? Where we can also provide enablement and learning for the user community could be helpful. We will only know this if we do it, but it could be helpful just by observing most of the interactions in the Slack channels, which are basically user questions. So yeah, that's the source of the idea.
Got you. Thanks.
Thank you. So yeah, all this is being put into an actual plan. Don't judge by the timeline here. All this could change. It's just an estimation of where these improvements for the project could land. The truth is that the action plan that is coming out of these findings has it's planned for the second half of this year. I mean, it will take at least the second half of 2022 to execute, to observe, and to have a new measurement of what is working, which of these ideas is working well, and the ones that are not working well. Because we do this every 6 months. Every 6 months, we run an assessment. I've been supporting the project for 2 months, maybe, but we wanted to have this exercise earlier to be able to establish an action plan, and so you can follow up. So don't judge by the by the spreadsheet. Most of this is already in stories, and will be put into a single blog post where you can have the why and how to follow up. But yeah, we need your help. All of this cannot be done by a single person. I just can't do this by myself. So we will need your help to run most of these initiatives. And also feel free to say no, to correct me if you think some of the ideas are totally nonsense. That's totally fine. Uh, just to finalize, here is the actual content calendar, not exactly a plan, but it's a calendar where we have most of the events where Paketo will be a good fit, and that have a...
Picture me? No! The definition of the word idiot, which you fucking are!
Probably there's an open mic, Brett, or is it for us? It could be, no problem. Okay, thank you, Brett. Cool. So yeah, good news. KubeCon North America deadline was moved 1 week, so now it's June 3rd. which makes a lot of sense. So we have some events here. Open Source Summit Europe will be also a really good one, and they have a good track of tutorials. And so we can propose there, and we know there's a big Paketo Buildpacks community in Europe. This event will be held in beautiful Dublin. And we have some other deadlines coming up in June, and I'm also collecting meetups and finding help from the Cloud Foundry Foundation Developer Advocates team, which is basically RAM. So we can distribute the load again, distribute all the, let's say, the work to spread the gospel, the word about Paketo in different events throughout the world. And in different communities, specific language communities like .NET, Java, and many others. And there are already some proposals being prepared, and that's also the same for Spring One. There are some proposals already in the works. So yeah, I'll be following up, helping as much as I can to coordinate, to support all the efforts, to put content out there and make sure that the community and developers out there know that Paketo Buildpacks, it's really helpful for them and how to use it. And yeah, that's part of the action plan. So far, any question, any concern? No. Right. So yeah, we'll work with the content team because I don't know how to publish a blog post in the Paketo blog. So how we'll work with them to put all of this into a blog post and keep it rolling. Okay. Any additional comment?
That's amazing. Thank you for putting that together. Would you be able to share the link to the spreadsheet that you were just sharing?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll put it in the general channel.
Yeah, David, this is great. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you. All right, folks. Thank you all for attending, for coming. See you next week.